Hello, this is Randy Hawes, and this episode of Panning Leadership comes from Jason Leger. In a moment, we're going to hear Jason talk about focus and empowerment. Jason takes us to a different perspective than we typically hear, in that he starts with a common complaint we hear from those in management and breaks down how this symptom a lot of times can be solved by some thoughtful engagement from the manager. With listening to this, you'll find out how you can turn an annoyance into abundance in terms of productivity and engagement through some simple exercises and a small time investment. So after a short word from our sponsor, Anchor FM, Jason will break down some gold about focus and empowerment. I know you're going to enjoy this.
This is Jason Leger with the Sharpstone Group, and you're listening to Panning Leadership. We're going to talk today about focus and empowerment. And what I mean by that is when you have team members or employees that lack focus, that lack empowerment, and they wind up coming to you a great deal more than they should to ask questions. They don't feel confident in the direction, or they're scared to move forward. Obviously, empowering them, having them solve problems on their own is much more productive than them knocking on your office door or even waiting for an answer instead of taking action. So here's some things you can do for those particular types of employees to get them moving. So to stop the trend of employees looking to you for all the answers, these are the empowerment visualization tools to get people moving and solving more problems on their own. And really it is about visualization. If someone can't visualize themselves or picture themselves taking care of a problem, then they won't do it, especially if they haven't really been successful at it in the past. So be intentional to show your focus on their questions and their project. And you're going to do that by doing these 4 things. Listen and ask questions about their project, approach, and intended outcomes. What is their project? How are they going to accomplish it? And what do they expect to get at the end? And take a moment to not just say, okay, great, let me know how it goes, but actually validate each idea. Validate that the project is valuable. That gives them a lot of gas in the tank to want to actually go out there and do the work. That their approach is valid. That lets them know that you value how they're going to go about it, that they're smart, that they're actually have come up with the right way to do it, and that they can feel confident in the way that they're going to do it. And the intended outcomes. Validate that the intended outcomes of their project is valuable. It's valuable to the company. It's important that it gets done right, and just puts more value on the project in general and puts more value on them. And the next thing is validate those ideas that they've brought to you, and or make changes or suggestions. So take the time to have a conversation about it. That lets them know that you care enough to offer some suggestions. It also makes them feel like that you're a teammate in this, and that you've heard what they've had to say, and it's sparked you and your imagination of some other things that they could also try and do. And so it feels like that you're on the same team and not that they're just giving a report. The third thing is leave with an agreed action plan, and most people do this, but give them the clear metrics that you're looking for. What are the metrics and the timing for them to report back? If you don't say, I would like to know these things in 2 weeks, then they're going to want to tell you things that you may not even want to know too early, because they want to be validated over and over and over. This is something that I suffered with when I worked at a big corporation. I was constantly trying to get validation because I wasn't sure whenever I went off on my journey for the project that it was exactly what they wanted. And so I had a little bit of doubt, and I kept wanting to come back and get rid of that doubt by meeting and asking and validating and validating. And those things can go away if you will take the time on the front end to have some agreed upon metrics and when to report back on those particular metrics. That way, that person knows exactly what you're waiting to hear, what's important, and frankly, that you don't want to hear from them until you have those metrics. And so that gives that person some time to actually do some work, and it actually keeps them out of your office and being productive. And the fourth thing is suggest and role play a potential issue that they might encounter and how they can solve it on their own or through other team resources, and note their ability to solve problems and be creative. In other words, they have to imagine themselves solving these problems. They first of all have to imagine themselves having problems and let them know you're going to have issues. Maybe there's a people issue, a process issue, a culture issue, and then let them know how they might go about solving that. That way they don't trip at the very first speed bump they have and then they're back in your office. Give them some room and let them know that you expect them to try to tackle some of these things ahead of time, and that they're going to face it. That way they'll go for it. They'll go for a solution. And if they, hit several speed bumps in a row, sure, they can raise a question, but at least they'll have tried and they'll have learned. And doing this over and over a series of projects will get them to be a lot more resourceful on their own. So this will give your team member runway to operate. And that's really what you're trying to do. Give them runway to operate without you in the picture until it's time for them to come back and for you to work together. They need to not return until that agreed upon milestone, if possible. And they're only going to do that if they know that you have confidence in them, you understand what they're doing, it's valuable, and that you expect them to solve the problems. Give them some room to do that. So the key here is to have a person visualize themselves successfully operating on their own, solving problems and delivering results. And that is the picture that you have to paint by starting with what's your project, what's your approach, and what are you trying to do? And then start helping them paint the picture of going through this project, through these issues, how to resource it, how to get to the end, what metrics they're really driving for, and what you expect at the end. And part of it is you expect them to operate on their own to some degree until they reach a particular point. And that way they have that space and that time and frankly are challenged to operate on their own until they're asked to come back and either give a report or coordinate again with the team. So focus and empowerment. As a leader, give them your focus. And if you take the time to follow these steps, you will have achieved empowerment maybe to somebody who hasn't felt empowered before. And that's almost always a good idea. It almost always gives better productivity and better job satisfaction, and certainly gives you some runway to do some other things as a leader and gives them the runway that they need to get their job done, their project done, and their project work done. Appreciate you listening today. And if you have any questions, always reach out to us at the Sharpstone Group, and we'd be happy to chat. If you have any other ideas on leadership topics that you would like to hear discussed, please reach out to us with those as well. Until then, we'll see you next time.